chapter 1, verse 6 of the book of Esther. And it says, Chor Karpasu Tcheles. So the king made a party for 180 days, and at this party there was Chor there, which is, what does the word Chor mean? Rashi says, these are clothing that are different colors, and he hung them like mats. Chor is white. That's how it's typically translated. Karpas. This is the only time in the Bible that Karpas appears. This is next week we'll start studying the Haggadah. Excuse me. Next week we'll start studying the Haggadah. And Karpas is, of course, at the beginning of the Haggadah. So some people try to make a connection between the two, but it's not clear that there's any connection. But Karpas means fine cotton here, as opposed to in the Seder, it means like a vegetable. So some say that we remember on Seder night the sin that we thought we were redeemed in the book of Esther. And obviously we were still in exile, but we thought we were redeemed. So we remember that by dipping the karpas. Utcheles, and they also had, hello, Aviva and Mordechai. They also had tcheles. What's tcheles? Tcheles is this purple, this turquoise. And here again, we're reminded that the Jewish people thought that they were in the redeemed state. Here they are invited into the palace, which is like the Beit HaMikdash, using the garments of the Kohen and using the garments of the Beit HaMikdash. Achuz b'chavlei boots. It was held with cords of fine linen, va'argaman and purple, aglile chasef v'amudei sheish, silver rods and pillars of marble, mitot zahav v'kasef, and there were couches of gold and silver, al ritzpat b'hat v'sheish v'dar v'socheres, on a floor made up of different types of marble. This reminds us of the marble that they had at Sinai, when they stood at Sinai and they saw the lattice underneath God's throne. So they really had all of the fineries. And look at the Rashi. Rashi says different types of achuz b'chavlei boots v'argaman. They spread out the cords of fine linen and argaman. They spread that out as mats. And they were also spread out on the rods of silver and marble pillars. And they set up the gold beds and silver beds. They arranged them for their meal. Okay, now we get to verse 7, and it says, Vashkos beklei zahav v'chelim mekelim shonim. And they drank, the drinks were served in golden utensils, gold cups, and they drank from kelim shonim, different vessels. We'll see what that means. Well, Rashi actually does, Rashi comments on it. V'yein malchus, and the wine of the king was rav, was so abundant, Kiyad HaMelech, in accordance with the king's wealth. So what does Rashi say here? They drank, the wine was served in golden vessels. Shonim, and it was from different vessels. Rashi says, Mishunim zemizeh, they were all different from each other.
I'm sorry, did you say that Rashi said that Jews were there? Because the plain text of Pshat doesn't say there were any Jews there.
For sure, the Gemara says that they were there, because it says that why were they punished with Haman? because they benefited from the meal of that king. So, yeah, Kobe, grab a chumash, my dear friend.
Rabbi, maybe this is the right time to say what I learned this week. First of all, the wine and the meat might have been kosher, um, because it says that he didn't keep any expense in offering all of his guests exactly what they needed. But the rabbis tell us that we're supposed to read the Chilim Ikalim Shonim in the tune of Eicha. And I was asked by my bat mitzvah student this week, what does it mean, strange vessels or utensils? And I said that I never thought about it before, but the Mizrakei Kesef and Mizrakei Zahav that were in the temple didn't have an actual bottom. You could not put down these cups and use them as cups. They were specifically with very pointy bottoms. And so when the Jewish people saw them, even though the wine was kosher and the meat was kosher, they should have said, "Hey, these are the utensils that his grandfather-in-law stole from the temple, and we should leave." And and that's why the Chalim Ikalim Shonim is strange utensils that we've never seen before in a
Very
meal,
nice.
and they would have known that these are the temple utensils.
Very nice, Rabbi Yosef. And Rabbi Yosef is referring to the fact that the Gemara in Megillah, or the Yalkut Shimoni also says that these utensils were the utensils that were taken from the temple. So the Jewish people were participating in this feast, which was being made from the utensils of the temple. So we should have been crying. We should have been crying. Instead, we were celebrating. And then V'yein Malchus Rav. And the wine was so abundant. That's the first explanation. Rashi gives a second explanation that he gave them to drink, each one from a wine that was older than him. Now, it's no big deal if it's Kobe, because Kobe's 18. How old are you? You're old enough to vote. And no big deal to get 18-year-old wine. But I'm already 50. It's already a little harder to get 50-year-old wine. So, I don't know what's the oldest wine out there. Anybody know? What's the oldest?
Johnny Depp spent $11,000 on a wine that was older than him.
What did you say, Dan?
I said there's some very old wine out there, but there's a question at a certain point whether it's still drinkable.
Right, it gets too old. But one time, and Johnny Depp, one time somebody died, and we got the wine from his wine cellar, and we opened it up, and it was horrible. Yeah, it goes bad.
Yeah, but like I said, $11,000. He wouldn't have spent it if he didn't think that the wine was good.
That's not that old. Johnny Depp is what, 55, 60. But I'm saying, I wonder if there's 200-year-old wine or something like that. That I don't know. Also, that takes an enormous amount of patience. You're making it for your great, 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 great grandchildren. If you're going to be aging this wine at a certain point, just go for it, right? What? At a certain point. Okay. Vashtiya kadat ain ones. So this is a very unusual. The Gemara has a lot of explanations of this. The drinking was according to the law ain ones. What does that mean? So it could mean there was no forcing. Because the king established for every officer to do each man according to his pleasure. What does it mean, Rashi? Says the drinking was according to the law. Wait, 1 second. Hold on. Oh no. Okay, so drinking was according to the law. What does that mean? There are some meals, says Rashi, Shekofin as Amasubin, we force the people who are there to drink a large utensil. And then there are some meals that you're not allowed to drink unless you really press. But here, everybody could do whatever they want. It was all open season, which is also interesting. What's the concept there? Here, we kind of see an image of Achashverosh of being like a man of the people, letting everything go. You know what I'm saying? And this is going to get him into trouble later on. But he seems to not have a firm grip on the kingdom. Each one could do whatever they wanted. And that's indicated by the next verse. Gam Vashti Amal. How are you doing, my friends? Baruch Hashem. Hello, Greg. Hello, Bill. We're studying the book of Esther. What page is it? Anyone want to see it? What?
Page 1374.
1374. It says, Gam.
Rashi makes a comparison to Yosef. To Paro. In the,
Right. We
in the
didn't
third
get that.
Dibra Malchus, sorry.
Yeah, we didn't. I'll call Rabbi. So, because that's what he commanded for every. Hello, Ezra. How you doing? Hold on 1 second. Okay, so it says, Rabbi Yosef pointed out that I skipped the Rashi. I'll call Sareya Suda. On over all the princes, there was the Sarafim, Sarah, Tabachim, Sarah Mashkim. There were different officers over the meal, and everybody could do whatever they wanted. Now, also Vashti the queen, Asta Mishtei Nashim. Vashti the queen, she made a party for the women. Beit HaMalchus Asher Melech Achashverosh, in the royal house of King Achashverosh. Now, I want to recommend that everybody reads this beautiful book about the book of Esther called The Dawn. Have you ever read that, Dan? Oh, you would love that book. It's by Yoram Hazoni, and it's a political reading of the book of Esther. And once you read his book, you can't unsee it. And he points out that this is not just like silly thing. Vashti's throwing her own party. No, she's basically the way he understands the politics of this is that Achashverosh and Vashti had married, and there was a question as to who was the real authority. And so Achashverosh is trying to demonstrate that he's in charge. So Vashti here tries to demonstrate that she's in charge. So she makes it in the kingdom's house. She says, I'm the one in charge. And that's what's going on here. There's the dynamics of who's really running the kingdom, because Vashti, presumably, she came with all of her wealth and political power into the marriage. And now Achashverosh was trying to say that it was mine. And that's why, jumping forward, that's why Esther was so appealing to him, because she had no nation, no solidarity. She was a blank slate. He wouldn't have to share the power. And that's why also at the end of this chapter, he says that we follow the language of the man. Meaning to say all the lawyers have to work in my language, and we're in control. That's that there's a political dynamic going on here. How you doing, Ramosha? Here, look on with your dad. We're studying the book of Esther. It says also Queen Vashti made a party. Bayom Hashvi, on the 7th day, Ketov Lev HaMelech B'Yayin. Okay, now we're going to have problems. And Rashi says this was Shabbos. So on the 7th day, when the king was very filled with wine, this is a big problem. The Gemara in Megillah also tells us, even though some say it's a mitzvah to drink, on Purim, bad things happen when you drink. And Achashverosh got into a lot of trouble here. When the king was filled with wine, Amar, L'muman bizazah charbana biksav avaksav zeisar v'charkas. He says to his 7 advisors, Shavasa Sarisim Mishartimus B'nei Amelcha Chashverosh. He spoke to his 7 advisors who were serving him. And we know that all these advisors messed him up big time, which is also the context of how you have to read Haman coming in, because Gidal Amelcha Chashverosh as Haman. Why does he elevate Haman? He's saying after there was an assassination attempt, he'd stop trusting. Here he can't do anything without trusting the 7 advisors. But then after there was an assassination attempt, he actually moves away from this model. So these are the 7 advisors. He says, "Lavias vashtia malkal melech bekeser machus laros amim v'asarim es yafia kitovas marehi." He says, "Bring Queen Vashti before the king with her crown to show the people and the princess her beauty, because she was beautiful." What's going on here is that this is an attempt to show Vashti who's boss, to show that he's the king, he has the political power and not her. But Vashti wasn't buying it. She refuses to come. Why does she refuse to come? Because she thinks she's the one who's in charge. And also this is this proof that this is the correct reading is he doesn't kill her. He can't kill her. He just uses his lawyers to isolate her, but he doesn't kill her because she's more powerful than him in a certain degree. So that's what happened. The queen refused to go. The king got very upset and his anger burnt within him. Rashi says, why did she refuse to come? Because Rashi says, why did she refuse to come? Anybody remember what Rashi says? Why did she refuse to come? Rashi says, based upon the Gemara Megillah, the fisha parcha bat saras. All of a sudden, she got saras. She got the skin condition, so that she wanted to be refusing to come, so she would get killed. Why? Because what she used to do was mavshetet benos Yisrael arumos v'osa b'melacha b'Shabbos. Because what she used to do was she used to make the Jewish girls remove their clothing and work for her on Shabbos. So therefore it was decreed that she will be killed naked on Shabbos. So Rashi clearly reads the Gemara saying that she was killed. But the problem is the text never says that. I want to say something else about this. Vashti today is a feminist icon. Yeah, seriously. No, Vashti today is a feminist icon. Actually, my wife went to Barnard. Barnard is nowadays.
Yeah, so did my sister.
Yeah, my sister went, my wife, my daughter. They all went to Barnard. Today it's a little bit. I'm we've been very supportive of Barnard. We've been very big. I'm a very big donor. We've been very consistent donors, and they actually did a whole. Their alumni newsletter did a profile of my wife for being a donor. Like they did a whole profile on her. Anyway, the point is, Vashti was an icon there because she stood up to the king. So she was always an icon. And the Gemara, she's a villain. So anyway, you ever notice that Vashti was a feminist icon? Anybody notice that?
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, she's a feminist icon. And you know that, Ben? You're a dean of education. That Vashti is seen in feminist circles as a hero.
Vashti. Oh, yes. I have a very distinct memory when I was a kid. This was like in the 70s.
In Berkeley.
Actually, this was in London.
Yeah.
I remember it was kind of like a kind of joke, like, oh, she's such a feminist. Like, this is like 74, 75.
About Vashti.
Vashti. Yeah, so when we were little kids at Hebrew school, that was one of the things they would talk about in a kind of joking way.
Oh, it's just.
Yeah, but
some
she's.
people don't take it as a bit.
Well, they lionized her in the feminist circles.
So, stood up to the patriarchy.
Yeah.
She stood up. So the Gemara is not having it. The Gemara says she was wicked. She was cruel. She was beating the Jewish girls and humiliating them by making them work without clothing. So this is the tension.
So Talmud discuss that.
how she was ordered to appear and then
Yeah,
group together.
yeah, the Talmud goes into this. Yeah, in Megillah 12b, Talmud goes into it. Talmud does not like Vashti, because without Vashti's removal, we don't have Esther. The Talmud sees her as an evil that we need to get rid of. Although,
Performed a service.
right, so
Got out of the way, so Esther could arrive.
yeah, but also in many ways, Esther is the anti-Vashti. The reason how Esther gets to power, why do you think Achashverosh chose Esther? I mean, the man had a different woman every single hour. You know, he had any woman in the kingdom he could have. What was it about Esther? Can't be that she's the what?
It's Jewish.
Well, he didn't say that no, the whole point was she didn't say her nationality. She made no requests. She said, I'm nothing. All the other women, when they went to get their makeup, they had a lot of requests. Esther, lo biksha davar, she requests nothing. She says, I will do your bidding. I will not be a source. I'm not going to be a Vashti. That's why Esther was chosen, which is when you see the development of the character of Esther, her heroism is she moves from being a wallflower or whatever, or wallpaper, whatever it is, a flower, whatever what's the expression? Wallflower, to being a force. He didn't know what he was getting with Esther. He thought he was getting somebody who was a shrinking violet, but he got the person who was outsmarted him politically. Were you trying to say something, Thera?
Just that Esther came across as passive, and she was listening to what Mordecai told her to do, which is to not give out her nationality, and she was very respectful and extremely modest. But deep down inside, as you said, she knew what was what. And she blossomed throughout she came into her own during the rest of the Megillah.
Right. So why did the feminists choose Vashti? They should have chosen Esther, because Vashti was unsuccessful. Esther was the one who got.
Why
She
do you
said
have
to
to
people-
choose? Why is it one or the other? They're both heroines.
Well,
I mean,
No,
why do women? We're not. I don't think we make those distinctives. I know in my Chabad world, Vashti is yogurt.
they don't like Bill. The Talmud doesn't know what a fan of Vashti.
Yeah, but those
Well,
of
according to
us
the
on the
Talmud.
other side are like she had the gumption to say no.
Yeah, well, the feminist side says, yes, she had the gumption to say no, but she was. That's the point of activism.
How do we know? We weren't there? How do we
No,
know
no.
this wasn't all made up about?
Rabbi,
let me just
actually,
say-
I want to
hold on
answer
one
Deborah
second.
because I think that's what I
Well,
always learned, which was the Christian people say that she was removed and can never come back to be the queen.
One
Jewish
thing,
interpretation is that she was killed.
executed. But let me just say one thing, that this is the point that I wanted to make. And you see this a lot with what's going on in the college campuses now with the supporters of Hamas. Activism, to my mind, should not be the goal of activism, should not be to make yourself feel good. The goal of activism should be to try to make social change. So, like a lot of these protesters, I even, like I saw the way they're communicating with each other within the protesters' dialogue. They're like, what are you doing? These are people who support the students who are taking over they support the cause of the students who are taking over the libraries in Columbia. And they said it's completely ineffective. You're just getting everybody expelled. You're not pushing forth your cause. You're just getting everybody to you're alienating people. So Vashti was completely ineffective as an activist. She ended up being isolated. You never hear from her again. She became politically marginalized. Whereas Esther was totally successful. She saved the Jewish people. She assumed authority. So my point is that if you're looking for a role model, you should look for a role model, not somebody who dies a gallant death, but rather somebody who's able to really make social change. You don't want to politics shouldn't be to make you feel good.
I'm
It should
sorry,
be to get
Rabbi.
results.
I just have to respectfully
You're allowed to.
not disagree, but take another
Fair.
point of view. I'm looking at the accident from another position. you said it, without Vashti, we don't have Esther. So Vashti needed to do her work so Esther could do hers. To separate them, to say
Well,
one
guys.
is bad and one is good, it's just two fifth grade.
Fair, okay, fine. I see what you're saying. And that goes back to the point we made yesterday that the whole book of Esther takes place over 10 years. It's not okay, Sarah, we'll give you the last word and then we're gonna pray.
Okay, I think that when feminists look at things that are old documents, old stories, they're looking for someone who kind of breaks out of that mold. And they pick anyone who's not passive and who doesn't fit the stereotype of what women should have been in ancient times. And Vashti had certain qualities. Hagar had qualities, right? So
But
feminists,
Hagar was effective. Hagar
Right.
got the goal. He
right,
saved her son. Hagar was effective activist.
right.
But Vashti,
They also like Miriam because she spoke out.
Miriam was effective.
Right, right. But these are
Yes.
all women that spoke out, whether they were
Yeah.
effective or not. That was what they have in common.
I understand.
I
That's-
want to say too that she was effective because guess what? It's 2025 and we're still talking about it.
There you go. Greg, we'll give you the last word and then we'll stop.
Gonna say the fallacy of the argument is that both of them had the very